The moment she entered, she was dismissed. Her appearance was striking. A wrinkled oatmeal-colored dress, scuffed leather shoes, and hair loose down her back. An actress turned, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. Seriously? Appearing at the prestigious casting looking like that? She proceeded into the casting room, and the director's voice erupted. "Oh my God! Are you mocking me? This is an insult. Get her out. Out." Despite the commotion, only one sentence was needed. The statement hung in the air, leaving the entire room utterly still. This was the final casting for Noble, a celebrated fragrance brand staging its initial return in 10 years, with a worldwide campaign filmed by Ethan Cole, the famously demanding director known for several Academy Award-winning art films. The central concept? Nobility. Not in a traditional aristocratic meaning, but something more profound. Something timeless. Auditions were taking place in Manhattan, at the top of the modern glass building belonging to Noble Corporation. Only 30 actresses were invited, carefully selected from thousands nationwide. These women represented the elite Golden Globe recipients, established talents, and popular figures in the media. Ellie Harper, however, seemed out of place, or so it appeared. She was an unknown, lacking a stylist or support team, and arrived wearing a simple dress, accompanied by a manager relying on a feeling and harboring a secret that would dramatically alter the situation. The casting took place on the top floor of the Noble Corporation's modern Manhattan skyscraper. Ellie Harper followed her manager, Claire Dawson, into the room and was almost overwhelmed by the brightness. The space was filled with well-known actors, with only a few unfamiliar faces present. The event's theme was nobility, so attendees were dressed in elaborate attire, including designer gowns, sparkling jewels, and impeccably styled hair. The majority of the attendees were familiar with one another, engaging in brief greetings and professional introductions. Those less acquainted sought opportunities to compliment prominent figures, and the room resonated with animated conversation. When Ellie entered the doorway, an abrupt stillness fell over the space. It wasn't due to recognition, no one knew her name, but rather because, in contrast to the well-known attendees adorned with diamonds, she seemed strikingly out of place. Some might have described her appearance as unconventional. Her dress was a simple, somewhat faded oatmeal-colored shift, and her brown leather shoes showed signs of wear and scuffing. She wore no jewelry, no makeup, and her chestnut hair flowed in loose, unbound waves down her back. The room was crowded with Hollywood's elite, and after a moment of surprised looks, they made no effort to conceal their disapproval. They didn't even quiet their voices as they openly criticized her directly. The question arose, who was this? Some whispered she appeared to have just emerged from a dumpster. Others wondered if she was lost. An actress made a dismissive expression. Another exclaimed, "Absolutely not. She's represented by Claire Dawson, the former manager of Vanessa Lane." Everyone recognized Claire, the highly successful manager who had propelled Vanessa Lane to fame before Vanessa's sudden retirement. Seeing Claire with Ellie caused astonishment. Wait, that's Claire's latest client? The one she's promoting so heavily? Producer derided. Even without Vanessa, Claire's professional history shouldn't involve working at this level. Is Dawson's agency in such a difficult situation? It's hard to believe they can't afford a stylist, someone remarked. No, they're not without funds, they simply don't prioritize her, another responded. Disparaging comments arose. Vanessa damaged her career due to a relationship, and Claire was oblivious until Vanessa made the announcement. She was her manager, and didn't realize the situation until then. Yeah, Claire's career has declined, a voice added. The prominent talent at Dawson's agency is Monica Reed, not Claire. Just then, a rising star from Starlight Entertainment, Brooke Kendall, approached Claire with a saccharine smile that couldn't quite conceal her derision. "Claire, you're bringing a new talent to the casting?" she inquired, her gaze dismissively assessing Ellie's attire. Claire responded calmly, "I signed her up impulsively. She successfully completed the preliminary rounds, so I thought it would be beneficial experience." Her voice was modest but resolute, a veiled display of Ellie's achievement in reaching this stage among the nation's leading actresses. Brooke's expression became condescending as she observed Ellie, shaking her head. Claire, no offense, but even a waitress wouldn't present themselves this way. Do you feel Vanessa's departure severely? If you are finding things difficult, abandon Dawson's agency and join my team. My assistant's compensation isn't substantial, but it's preferable to supporting someone of Ellie's profile. Starlight and Dawson's agency had been competitors for years, and Brooke harbored a personal resentment. Vanessa had overshadowed her at award shows on numerous occasions. She wasn't going to let a chance to challenge Claire pass her. The people nearby smiled, enjoying the unfolding situation. Another voice interjected, "Hey, I'm looking for assistance as well. Claire, would you be interested?" Brooke laughed, pleased. Look at that, Claire is in high demand. No need to worry about going without. Ellie's gaze sharpened with a frigid look as Brooke embarrassed Claire. But Claire had cautioned her, regardless of what occurs, remain silent. Ellie located a peaceful spot, settled down, and shut her eyes, blocking out the surrounding sounds. Her purpose wasn't to argue. She was present to concentrate and discover the necessary emotion for the part. The audition commenced shortly thereafter. Ellie received a respectable number, 15 out of 30. Brooke, number 14, observed Ellie's number and released a theatrical sigh. Such a promising slot squandered on her. The initial actress, Mia Carson, entered. She was a force, a self-made star who had worked tirelessly to achieve a Golden Globe, lacking formal training or a privileged background. A palpable stillness fell over the room as she arrived. Her skill was unmistakable. Brooke, however, expressed skepticism. Honestly, she muttered, she's just a high school dropout from nowhere. How can she possibly succeed in Noble? Brooke herself wasn't from a family of actors, but her family possessed considerable wealth. Her father held a Senate position, her mother operated a high-end crocodile leather fashion brand, and she had been raised with refined manners. She received piano and calligraphy lessons, among other things. Today, she wore a dress valued higher than Noble's entire advertising budget, and her self-assurance was evident. Few could compare to her upbringing, despite some achieving similar levels of recognition. Mia appeared less than a minute later, her complexion pale. Her manager hurried to assist her, but Mia declined, appearing defeated. Her manager's shoulders slumped, though she stayed to comfort her. Brooke crossed her arms, smug. Knew it. What's a small-town girl gonna do with Noble? Other actresses with trust fund backgrounds echoed her, sneering as Mia, unable to bear the mocking stares, left the room. Even a Golden Globe couldn't shield her from the sting of their elitism. In her corner, Ellie cracked her eyes open, watching Mia's retreating figure with a flicker of regret. Mia's acting talent and existing fanbase suggested this advertisement would be a sure success. It was disappointing. The second actress, a coal heiress whose father had funded her career, performed even worse. The third, a Naipo baby with actor parents, lasted only 3 minutes. She was adequate but ultimately unsuitable. As actress after actress was considered, even the most established names failed to meet expectations. Tension filled the audition room, particularly as the director, Ethan Cole, could be heard criticizing them from behind the closed door. Ethan's American accent possessed a sharp quality, developed through years of working internationally. He wondered if his words were being understood, and he doubted their intelligence. He desired grace and refinement, not lifeless figures performing mechanically. He criticized Mia, stating that while her performance was convincing, her eyes revealed a lack of depth. She seemed ordinary, just another actress, a mere prop. He dismissed a third, acknowledging her talent but finding her far from ideal. She didn't match the image he held. And one prior to Brooke, that was the 13th person. She believes I am foolish. She possesses no understanding of the harp. The actresses outside, previously full of self-importance, lost color. Is this man genuine? He has criticized everyone, one whispered. He holds a resentment towards Americans. Another complained. It is simply an advertisement. Why is he behaving as though we must be specialists? Does he anticipate that we should become proficient in everything? Brooke laughed derisively, flipping her hair. Only individuals lacking talent create justifications and fault the director. As number 14, she entered the casting room. When Brooke opened the door, Ethan's scowl lessened. She wore a vintage-inspired gown, adorned with pearls and emeralds, and her blonde hair was styled in an elegant updo with a jade hairpin. She wasn't simply noble, she was a vision of American glamour with a hint of timeless sophistication. Ethan's eyes brightened, and his tone grew warmer. "Come on, my dear. Step closer. Let me see you." Brooke stood confidently, allowing him to assess her. Growing up in privileged environments, her every movement, her smile, her bearing, displayed innate elegance. There was no need for pretense. Ethan walked around her, acknowledging with nods. "Very well, Brooke. Let's see what you can do." The casting room was filled with a variety of props: a grand piano, a calligraphy set, a chessboard, an embroidery stand, and a silk fan. Brooke's eyes focused on a harp. "This one," she stated, lightly touching the strings. The harp presented a greater challenge than a piano, demanding complex technique. 7 pedals, 47 strings, a range of 6.5 octaves. Ethan, a culture buff who had studied American and European arts for decades, wasn't someone easily deceived by a superficial performance. One actress had previously attempted a deceptive performance and received criticism. Ethan raised a brow as Brooke selected the harp, displaying skepticism. However, as she commenced playing, his expression changed. Her fingers moved gracefully over the strings, producing a melody that was both subtle and powerful. Following her performance, Ethan hesitated to reject her immediately. This was unprecedented. He spent a considerable time discussing the matter with his assistant. Eventually, the assistant approached Brooke with courtesy. "Ms. Kendall, we are still in the audition process, but could you please wait outside? We will inform you of our decision." The unspoken message was evident. They were impressed, but further evaluation was needed. Brooke responded with a pleasant smile. "Certainly." Internally, she allowed a confident smirk. Who could possibly surpass her? The role was undoubtedly hers. As Brooke exited, a palpable excitement filled the room. She had been in there for almost 10 minutes, and instead of Ethan's typical shouting, they had heard the harp's delicate music. Brooke didn't retreat like the others. She sat down, composed, prepared to be summoned. It was clear. She had made the shortlist, possibly even secured the position. The other actresses' certainty lessened. The established performers didn't want to chance embarrassment. But the prestigious contract was too appealing to relinquish. "Number 15, you're up," the assistant announced. Ellie, still absorbed in her thoughts, remained still. Claire, seated next to her, didn't intervene. She understood Ellie needed this time. Brooke, noticing Ellie in her view, felt compelled to speak. "Claire, I'm not intending to be unkind, but why select her? Starlight dismissed her for a reason. Are you genuinely allowing her to audition in that state? If she performs poorly, it reflects not just on you, but on your entire agency." Brooke's words directed all attention to Ellie. The room shifted, with some actresses quietly laughing. Targeted as the recipient of their criticism, perhaps they wouldn't appear so unfavorable compared to Brooke. Several, however, remained silent, questioning whether Ellie's disheveled look was a calculated choice, a hidden tactic. Perhaps she would change before entering. "Claire, I'm ready," Ellie said quietly, opening her eyes. Claire nodded. "You can do it. Number 15, let's go," the assistant repeated. Amidst a wave of doubtful gazes, Ellie rose, adjusted her dress, and proceeded calmly to the casting room. The moment she vanished inside, the room erupted in whispers. "Is she really going in like that?" One actress murmured. "I had anticipated a hidden strategy, but it seemed she was auditioning as if she were down on her luck. Ethan is going to be furious. She's in serious trouble. Perhaps it's better not to know." Then, Ethan's voice boomed through the doorway. "Are you insulting me, insulting Noble? Get out." Brooke took a drink of juice given to her by her assistant, a smile playing on her lips. "That went better than I thought." Why proceed when failure is inevitable, clinging to the hope of an unexpected outcome? She retrieved her phone and initiated a call. "Hey, Savannah. Brooke, are you finished? How did it proceed?" Savannah's voice was even and comforting. Exceptional as expected, Brooke, she responded with a hint of confidence. The initial 13 actresses presented challenges, but the remainder? They were no match. You are guaranteed success. Of course you would succeed, Savannah laughed. Thank you for making way, dear. This opportunity would have rightfully been yours. Please don't exaggerate. I've assisted you before, such as securing a partnership between your father's company and my mother's brand last month. Minor things. You won't believe who I just saw. Who? Your foster sister, Ellie Harper, the country bumpkin. What? How did she get into a Noble casting? I have no idea what fortunate circumstances she encountered to succeed in the prelims, but it was amusing to watch. The theme is nobility, and she appeared as if she lives under a bridge. She's lost it, Savannah laughed. Absolutely. Avoiding interaction with her is wise. She is creating a difficult situation for herself. Regardless, I must leave. I'll speak with you when I have cause for celebration. Within the casting room, Ethan's anger encountered Ellie's composure. She remained present, undisturbed, her clear, hazel eyes meeting his. A quality in her gaze, sincere and resolute, caused him to hesitate, as if he were the one who didn't belong. Her attire was unremarkable. It was simply quite understated compared to the others' elaborate appearances. The dress, though used, was tidy and clean. Her unadorned face, gentle and simple, evoked a line of verse for him, like a lotus blooming purely from the water, free from embellishment. Yet her apparent lack of preparation felt like a rebuke. You, I'm speaking to you. Do you not understand English? You are dismissed. Please leave now. Do not waste anyone else's time, Ethan stated, too frustrated to even inquire about her name. While he scolded, Ellie moved toward the harp Brooke had used. Her fingers lightly touched the strings, producing a few notes. Ethan's anger intensified. He paused, intending to continue. However, a sudden rush of sound halted him. The musical phrases flowed, complex and resonant. This is Shenandoah? He questioned, surprised. It was recognized as a difficult American folk composition for harp, a poignant tune deeply connected to the country's identity. Brooke had performed a less complicated classical selection. Ellie remained silent. She was positioned at the harp, her fingers moving with accuracy. The music grew, captivating Ethan. He disregarded his frustration, forgot to speak, and was absorbed by the melody's richness. Shenandoah stood as a cornerstone of American music, its notes reflecting themes of longing, resilience, and quiet strength. It resonated beyond beauty. It pulsed with defiance, a narrative of perseverance through hardship. Ellie's performance wasn't merely skilled, it embodied the song's essence. Ethan watched, stunned. Her clothes were ragged, her face bare, but as she played, no one could mistake her for anything less than extraordinary. She wasn't insignificant, she was a force, her story interwoven into every note. As the final chord concluded, Ethan remained silent. Following a considerable interval, he composed himself, his voice lowered. That, your Shenandoah, it surpassed all my expectations. Ellie responded, nodding subtly, her face exhibiting no change. His perception of her composure, whether confronted with his criticisms or his accolades, impressed him. It wasn't a display of arrogance, it was something more profound, a grace appearing to emanate from within her. This was nobility. It wasn't the kind derived from money or status, but the kind built within, resilient even in poverty. He observed her, his anticipation increasing. None of the others, not even Brooke, had resonated with him in the same way. Brooke's presentation, as flawless as it seemed, felt practiced and insincere. But Ellie? She possessed genuine substance. He cleared his throat and inquired further. Tell me, how do you understand nobility? The others had provided standard responses, education, refinement, poise, which were dependable but lacking inspiration. He leaned forward, wanting to hear Ellie's opinion. She hesitated, carefully selecting her words. Genuine nobility isn't defined by the display of wealth or the importance of a lineage. It's not about jewelry or a perfect appearance. It's not even the knowledge or etiquette one shows off to make an impression. True nobility is when you're wearing a simple dress, your hair disheveled, yet your inner light shines through, unmistakable. Ethan's eyes widened, his face practically glowing. Ellie continued, Noble's campaign is about fragrance, right? A fragrance can communicate more about an individual than any elaborate outfit. For a woman, perfume embodies her identity. It holds greater significance than clothing. It possesses enduring quality, unlike fleeting trends such as jewelry or hairstyles. A truly exceptional fragrance remains memorable. Ethan reacted immediately. Yes, absolutely. He nodded emphatically. Her statement perfectly captured the campaign's core message. Outside, the waiting actresses overheard Ethan's immediate reaction, then a moment of quiet, followed by the harp's uplifting melody. One actress remarked, "Did Claire prepare her with a harp trick?" After Brooke's performance, that's just embarrassing. Another, more perceptive, frowned. That piece sounds harder than Brooke's, but it won't matter. Brooke, who knew her harps, felt a flicker of unease at the technical skill echoing from the room, but she brushed it off. Claire, your little project doesn't get it. The harp's elegant, performers bathe, dress impeccably, respect the tradition. She's disrespecting the art itself. Ethan's gonna tear her apart. The others nodded. Claire remained silent, observing the door. Ellie hadn't been dismissed yet. That was step one, but her strategy was risky, and Claire wasn't certain how it would be received. When the music ceased, there was no yelling. The wait felt longer than Brooke's audition. What's happening in there? An actress murmured, pacing. He's likely reprimanding her so severely he's lost track of time. Ethan is a top-tier director. He's ruthless. This could damage Claire's whole agency. Ethan retrieved Ellie's file from his assistant, quickly reviewing it. His eyes widened. Ellie Harper. Wait, you're Cassandra Reed? Cassandra? Yes, that was my first film role, Ellie stated. Claire had sent clips from Legacy, so he wasn't surprised he recognized the name. However, his enthusiasm appeared considerable. Ellie continued, the moment I saw Cassandra, I was captivated. I need to see that film in theaters. When's it out? Ethan's regret was noticeable. He nearly didn't recognize her, as her usual appearance differed significantly from her on-screen image. Ellie offered a polite smile. Still in post-production, likely a month away. She added, thank you for the kind words. No, you deserve it, Ethan exclaimed. In Legacy, Cassandra was portrayed as a villain, but her powerful and seemingly unapproachable demeanor was precisely what he'd been seeking. Ellie's performance today only validated that. I'm so sorry, Ellie. I was mistaken, almost sent you away. She replied, you're right. Genuine heritage extends beyond appearance. He guided her to a presentation of distinguished perfumes. For 2 centuries, these perfumes have been created using time-honored methods and the world's most exceptional components. It's the scent of authentic aristocracy. I am pleased to lead this campaign, but I required someone who could represent that ideal. Fortunately, I found you. This partnership will be flawless. His assistant cleared his throat, murmuring, Sir, others remain. Should we proceed to the next candidate? Ethan dismissed him with a gesture. There is no need. Ellie is our ambassador. Please dismiss the rest. Outside, the door finally opened. The assistant emerged, addressing the crowd. Ladies, we have selected Ellie as our ambassador. The casting is complete. As a token of our gratitude, we are gifting everyone a 3-day luxury cruise. Enjoy. The room fell silent. Actresses who had not auditioned stared in disbelief. What? Is finished? We didn't even get an audition. It was disappointing, but most weren't shocked. The leading actresses breathed a sigh of relief. They avoided any embarrassment. A wave of congratulations washed over Brooke. Well done, Brooke. If it's you, I'm not mad. Brooke rose, enjoying the accolades, and moved towards the assistant. Thank you, Ethan, for the opportunity. I won't let him down. The assistant seemed puzzled. No, there's been a misunderstanding. It's not Ms. Kendall. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Ethan selected Ellie Harper, number 15. Ellie Harper? The one dressed like a bum? Someone exclaimed. You're joking, right? Brooke's complexion visibly paled. There's a mistake. Everyone was talking about Ellie Harper, the relatively unknown contestant. She had already mentioned the news to Savannah. The thought of losing to Ellie? It was simply unacceptable. The assistant confirmed with a firm nod. There was no error. It was Ms. Harper, number 15. Brooke's voice trembled with anger. This felt unjust. They deserved an explanation. The assistant expressed resignation. It's Ethan's decision. I am unable to alter it. Then allow me to speak with him, Brooke insisted. Others whispered, questioning whether the assistant had made a mistake with the announcement. Even Claire appeared shocked. The assistant finally agreed. I'll pass this on. He returned promptly. Ethan said, Ms. Kendall, when you see the advertisement, you'll understand why we selected Ellie. He turned to Claire. Ms. Dawson, Ethan would like you to come in to discuss the contract. Claire, still absorbing the information, nodded. Thank you. She followed him inside, leaving Brooke visibly embarrassed and the others speechless. No way. Ellie Harper? We lost to her? I was going to say she's Claire's client. There's no way she's that uncomplicated. We underestimated them. Consider Ellie a surprise. Brooke must be feeling the pressure. First, Vanessa had control, and now Claire is working with a new talent. During the return trip, Claire observed Ellie, who was enjoying a hot dog. It was her first meal since preparing for the casting. The more Claire collaborated with her, the less certain she appeared. You okay? Ellie asked, with her mouth full, noticing Claire's gaze. Feeling fortunate to have a brilliant client like me? Claire laughed. I thought your approach was dangerous. Ethan is knowledgeable, he might have detected any deception. Regarding that harp, you played remarkably well. That requires years of practice. Ellie almost laughed until she choked. Years? Claire responded, you're being overly generous. I learned it in a month, and it's the only piece I know. I memorized it by rote. My intention was purely to impress. Claire blinked, visibly amused and disbelieving. Seriously? Ellie confirmed, raising a finger. I experiment with various instruments. Harp, piano, whatever. I learned just enough to manage, but I'm certainly no expert. Acknowledging that lengthy dedication can lead to focusing on fundamental principles and then proceeding, Claire shook her head, smiling. You're quite remarkable. As the city lights passed by, Ellie took another bite of her hot dog, seemingly unaffected by the day's events. She had entered a room filled with challenging individuals, allowed them to challenge her, and ultimately succeeded. This wasn't driven by a need to demonstrate her superiority, but because she possessed a strong sense of self, which was sufficient. Please enjoy this story, and consider sharing it with others, leaving a comment, and subscribing for more thrilling content. They requested she tackle a complex math problem, not for the solution itself, but to observe her discomfort, hesitation, and silence. Within a seminar room populated by tailored suits and PhD name tags, she arrived wearing worn canvas shoes and a creased shirt. Did you take a wrong turn, ma'am? Someone chuckled, this isn't the PDA meeting. However, as her hand grasped the marker and countless eyes anticipated her failure, the whiteboard began to reveal something entirely different. The Ascension Forum at St. Lennox University stood as a cathedral of intellect, its ancient brick walls draped in ivy, its seminar halls aglow with chandeliers worth more than Manhattan penthouses. This exclusive conference, reserved for Ivy League PhDs and million-dollar AI research sponsors, featured tailored wool suits, silk ties, and name tags boasting titles like Chair of Quantum Computing. Polished oak tables held crystal water pitchers, and the air carried notes of oud and ambition. A limited number, just 300 attendees, received invitations, and their sapphire badges were verified by staff wearing velvet vests. Outside the main hall, a marble atrium provided access to a private lecture theater, with its doors designated solely for keynote speakers. Lillian Moore Bellamy entered through a less conspicuous entrance. Her jeans were worn, her simple t-shirt was tucked into a cardigan featuring worn cuffs, and her chestnut hair was pulled back with a rubber band. At 31, raised in a modest town in Vermont, she had taught herself advanced mathematics while caring for her ailing mother, and had turned down PhD offers from Harvard, MIT, and Princeton. She held a thick notebook filled with handwritten formulas. It was her only companion besides her husband, Dr. Henry Bellamy, the forum's keynote speaker. The hall's stairs felt oppressive, their whispers a gathering storm. Lillian seemed out of place within the forum, her notebook a stark contrast to the elite's carefully constructed environment. A Yale professor, wearing a $4,000 Zegna suit and displaying a sapphire badge, halted his discussion. He questioned aloud, loud enough for others to hear, if she was his bag holder. A Stanford researcher, dressed in a $3,000 Armani blazer, laughed softly, nodding to his colleague, suggesting she might be his new girlfriend, someone who hadn't attended college. A wave of laughter echoed through the seminar room, with attendees attempting to hide smiles behind their hands. Lillian remained composed, her hazel eyes focused, a notebook held close. She had come to offer encouragement to Henry, whose work she had subtly influenced. The audience's frustration grew, feeling the sharp sting of these academic authorities' dismissive behavior and their contempt for Lillian's calm demeanor. The ridicule intensified, a harsh and pointed performance led by the forum's prominent members. Becca Sloan, a third-year PhD candidate from St. Lennox, moved forward, her tailored Chanel skirt swaying, her blonde ponytail as crisp as her expression. At 26, having grown up in Boston's elite circles, she was known for her dismissive attitude towards competitors. She looked at Lillian's worn cardigan and showed disapproval. "Ma'am, this area is designated for main speakers only. Free coffee is available downstairs," she stated, her voice precise. The attendees reacted with laughter, the sound reverberating through the oak walls. Becca swung her ponytail, releasing a wave of jasmine-scented perfume, a fragrance Lillian was aware Henry found unpleasant. Lillian's grip on her notebook intensified, her expression composed, yet the audience's anger escalated, their pulses racing at this direct challenge, Becca's confidence appearing like a flame in the cold air. The disapproval intensified, a planned and focused criticism of Lillian's participation. A conference staff member, Margaret Voss, moved forward, her tailored vest neat, her face showing years of upholding established rules. At 50, raised in upstate New York, she took pride in maintaining order. She indicated the exit, her voice steady but not unkind. "Let's go, miss. You're disrupting the session." The crowd responded with cheers, their silk ties gleaming as they gestured toward the atrium. A Princeton alum, dressed in a $5,000 Brioni suit, called out, "Did you get lost? This isn't the community college." Laughter erupted, academics subtly bumping shoulders. A postdoc whispered, "She doesn't even look like a grad student." Someone added, "That notebook's probably just doodles and she dares sit here?" The insults felt like a guillotine, each word a blow against Lillian's silence. The audience's anger grew, their hearts aching for Lillian, and their frustration directed at this group's harsh treatment. The academics' disapproval became sharp as Lillian stood in the seminar room, their derision a deliberate attack intended to diminish her resolve. Near the oak tables, a group of Ivy League professors, dressed in $7,000 Seville Row suits, assembled, their voices forming a harsh blend. "She's a detriment to this forum's reputation," one remarked, gesturing with a gold fountain pen towards Lillian's worn cardigan. "Return to the library, dear," another suggested, displaying a sapphire badge and adding, "Her notebook appears as if purchased at a secondary school sale." Amusement rippled through the gathering, with staff members subtly acknowledging each other, their cufflinks sparkling. A quantum computing expert exclaimed, "She's an insult to every paper presented here." The remarks felt like a guillotine, each word a blade against Lillian's poised silence. Henry's lecture theater loomed beyond the hall, but the seminar room's disdain was a crushing weight. The audience's frustration grew, their hearts pounding, angered by this orchestrated cruelty, their ire ignited, ready to challenge the elite's arrogance. Becca Sloan delivered another sharp comment, deliberately intended to unsettle Lillian in front of the select group. "So, what understanding do you expect to gain at a forum like this?" she asked, her Chanel skirt reflecting the light as she stood at Lillian's table. "Or should we administer a freshman entrance exam to familiarize you with the subject?" She didn't pause for a response, instead heading to the whiteboard where she began writing a complex combinatorics problem, one that had previously challenged her own research group. "If I solve this before the coffee break ends, I'll publicly apologize and get your coffee for a week," she stated, her voice loud enough to silence nearby murmurs. "If not, kindly step aside and make room for real academics." The attendees cheered, their scorn a suffocating tide, their whispers buzzing. "She's a fraud." Lillian's hazel eyes burned with quiet fire, but her smile held a shield against the challenge. The audience's anger surged, their hearts aching for Lillian, outraged by this public humiliation displayed before them. The elite's contempt became intensely personal, their voices a sharp and bitter chorus. A Harvard professor, dressed in a $6,000 khitan suit, rested against the seminar table, his voice harsh and dismissive. "She's insignificant, likely here to collect Bellamy's notes," he remarked, indicating Lillian's notebook. "Notice that cardigan. Did she make it herself?" His colleagues chuckled, their sapphire badges glinting. An MIT postdoc exclaimed, "She's an embarrassment to whoever let her in." The crowd's laughter felt overwhelming, their arrogance felt like a public condemnation. Lillian tightened her rubber band, her hazel eyes steady, but the seminar room's disapproval felt like a heavy burden. The audience's frustration intensified, their hearts racing at this perceived institutional failing, their anger threatening to disrupt the forum's decorum. Becca Sloan's disapproval intensified, her words a deliberate attempt to embarrass Lillian before the seminar room's distinguished attendees. "She's not just out of place, she's a disgrace," she stated, her Chanel skirt catching the light as she indicated Lillian's canvas shoes. "Henry must be horrified to see this. Nobody in his session." Her group responded with laughter, their silk scarves waving, their eyes briefly looking at Lillian's notebook. "She's a charity case, not a scholar," Becca remarked, her voice strong enough to stop nearby whispers. The attendees responded with cheers, their scorn a heavy atmosphere, their comments a constant hum. "She's a fake." Lillian's hazel eyes held a quiet intensity, but her smile remained, a defense against the disloyalty. The lecture theater shone in the distance, yet the seminar room's disapproval felt overwhelming. The audience's anger surged, their feelings sympathetic toward Lillian. The room was filled with anger as this PhD candidate's actions were revealed. The staff's involvement only intensified the disappointment, appearing as a further breach of trust. A session coordinator, Clara Holt, wearing a tailored blazer, addressed the situation, her tone laced with disdain. "Miss, general seating is located in the atrium," she stated, gesturing towards a side door, her slight smile echoed by nearby academics. "We do not allow guests of this nature in the main hall," she continued, prompting laughter from the assembled group. At 28, having grown up in Connecticut, Clara valued her role in controlling access. The crowd's endorsement felt like an overwhelming force, their condescension a very public shaming. Lillian held her notebook, her hazel eyes focused, but the seminar room's disapproval felt oppressive. The audience's anger rose, their hearts racing at this form of institutional rejection, their resentment burning against St. Lennox's reputation. The seminar room staff's disapproval became obvious, their actions a public embarrassment seemingly intended for the academics' entertainment. A senior usher, Richard Tate, confronted Lillian close to the oak tables. His velvet vest was immaculate, and his voice conveyed condescension. "Miss, this hall is reserved for registered attendees only," he stated, ensuring the surrounding audience could hear. He indicated her jeans with a gesture, and a smirk echoed across nearby staff. "The Ascension Forum doesn't usually permit such simplicity," he noted, which prompted laughter from the academics and coordinators. The audience's affirmation felt overwhelming, their perceived superiority a stark display. Lillian held her notebook, her hazel eyes steady, but the seminar room's disapproval felt heavy. The audience's anger surged, their hearts racing at this perceived institutional slight, their indignation intense against the forum's principles. The intensity of the criticism escalated, their words a sharp and bitter barrage. A Cornell researcher, dressed in a $4,000 Canali suit, leaned forward, his voice raised and critical. "She's a fraud, likely attempting to spy on Bellamy's work," he said, his colleagues agreeing with nods. their cufflinks gleaming. Her notebook is a mere prop, a deceptive tactic to appear inconspicuous. Another added, raising his voice, "She's a deceiver, and the forum has been misled." Derisive laughter echoed, each accusation a painful blow aimed at Lillian. Rumors circulated, with accusations spreading quickly. It was said she was trying to take his research. Lillian subtly twisted a rubber band, maintaining her composure, but the public's defamation felt heavy. The audience's frustration boiled over, many sympathizing with Lillian, their anger a powerful force against these false accusations, eager for the truth to expose the elite's deceit. Lillian remained silent, her eyes dry, her arms holding the notebook, the record of her life's work, a collection of formulas that had influenced Henry's career. She moved to the whiteboard, her canvas shoes quiet on the oak floor, and took the marker. The room was still, many eyes watching to see if she would hesitate. Her lines were steady, purposeful, without tremor, no deletions, and no adjustments. Within 3 minutes, the board displayed a complex solution, a level 2 supersymmetric permutation model rendered in graceful lines. She placed the marker and returned to her seat, her hazel eyes unwavering. Becca scoffed. "That's it? Are you certain you didn't make a mistake?" The audience's emotions shifted, their frustration turning to excitement, Lillian's calm resolve a focal point. An experienced professor, Dr. Arthur Wren, stood up from the front row, his tweed jacket showing signs of age but retaining its dignified appearance. At 70, a legend in combinatorics, he moved slowly toward the board, his glasses glinting, his expression changing from composed to stunned. This is the shortest known solution to this problem," he said, his voice trembling. "She employed a supersymmetric model, something the advisory board hasn't even fully proven yet." The room fell silent, crystal pictures wavering, gasps spreading through the perfumed air. Attendees rose, gathering around the board, their sapphire badges glinting. Who is she? Questions arose about her identity. What was her origin? Becca's Chanel skirt appeared to fade, her ponytail offering no defense against the reality. The audience's sense of accomplishment grew, their hearts pounding as Lillian's skill altered the seminar room's power dynamic. The atmosphere changed as the keynote session commenced, with the crowd assembling in the lecture theater. Henry Bellamy approached the stage, his gray suit well-made but not ostentatious, his arrival impactful. At 40, raised in Chicago, he had received the Fields Medal for his work on algorithmic symmetry, much of it built on Lillian's unseen contributions. He adjusted the microphone, his gray eyes meeting Lillian's in the front row. "I'd like to relinquish my speaking time to someone far more deserving," he said, his voice steady. "This is Lillian Moore Bellamy, who turned down 3 PhD offers from Harvard, MIT, and Princeton to care for her ailing mother. The individual who authored 80% of the core algorithms in my research, and the only person in this room who genuinely understands the genesis of this problem." The audience's spirits lifted, their anger shifting to admiration, as Henry's explanation clarified the deception that had restricted Lillian. The room fell silent. Becca Sloan's coffee cup slipped from her grasp, breaking on the oak floor. Henry spoke, his voice sharp in the quiet, stating, "She doesn't require formal recognition. She doesn't need awards. She possesses brilliance, a quality none of us present can assert." The attendees' cufflinks appeared to lose their luster, their expressions strained with surprise. Clara Holt remained still, her role as gatekeeper a clear admission of defeat. Henry indicated Lillian, his hand unwavering. "This forum extended an invitation to me, but it is her contributions that warrant your appreciation." The audience cheered, their fury transformed into pride as Lillian's truth began to reshape the forum's legacy. Dr. Wren nodded, his glasses glinting with respect, the room holding its breath awaiting her response. Lillian rose, her frayed cardigan a quiet crown, and took the microphone. "I didn't come to prove anything," she said, her voice soft but clear. "I came to support my husband." She paused, her hazel eyes sweeping the room, adding, "But since you asked for a solution, I have offered one." The auditorium burst into applause, the attendees rising to their feet in a wave of admiration. Becca Sloan lowered her head, her Chanel skirt offering no comfort, and quietly apologized to Mrs. Moore Bellamy. Representatives from MIT, Stanford, and Caltech moved forward, their collaborative offers presented with unsteady hands. Lillian smiled, clasped Henry's hand, and remarked, "I just came to take you home for lunch." The audience responded with a powerful cheer, witnessing her poise dismantle the elite's presumptions. The consequences were swift, a judgment communicated without words. Becca Sloan was called before the advisory board, her research funding withdrawn, and her reputation served as a warning to those present. Clara Holt was moved to administrative roles, ending her career of controlling access. The Harvard professor who had ridiculed Lillian's cardigan was barred from participating in further discussions, effectively removing his impact. The Cornell researcher's grant proposals were denied, and his defamatory statements were revealed as falsehoods. Those who had previously shown scorn were addressed with consequences, and their positions lessened. Individuals who disseminated rumors concealed their credentials, their influence negated. Lillian stood next to Henry, her canvas shoes grounded, her notebook demonstrating her integrity. The audience's emotions resonated powerfully, their frustration changing to jubilation, Lillian's success shining brightly and diminishing the standing of the forum's leaders within St. Lennox's esteemed buildings. Henry Bellamy dominated the lecture theater, his voice cutting through the chandelier-lit air like a gavel. "You dared to question Lillian Moore Bellamy," he stated, his gray eyes radiating controlled fury, the architect of this forum's most significant insights. He raised a tablet displaying a list of consequences: Becca Sloan's research grants, Clara Holt's conference privileges, and academic advisory roles, all revoked by St. Lennox addressed the board. "Your names are erased from academic circles," he stated, his gaze fixed on Becca. "You've lost more than prestige, you've lost your futures." The crowd's gasps echoed as a wave of shock. With their empires collapsing under his direction, Lillian stood alongside him, her worn cardigan appearing bright, her victory assured by Henry's immense power. The elite's failure was a striking display, their overconfidence destroyed under Henry's direction. Becca Sloan retreated, her Chanel skirt seeming inappropriate, her standing a lesson to those present. Clara Holt's power crumbled, her disapproval a matter of public record, her attendance guiding her towards the atrium exit. The Columbia professor's funding disappeared, his defamation revealing his falsehoods. The professors who'd idly written with pens concealed their cufflinks, their positions as advisors terminated. The staff who'd previously expressed disdain were let go, their professional paths concluded. Those who had circulated rumors faced rejection, their power fading. Lillian remained composed, her canvas shoes a subtle sign of strength, her hazel eyes resolute. The audience's emotions surged, their anger shifting to admiration, Lillian's triumph and Henry's fury dominating the forum's esteemed chambers. A wave of applause filled the hall as his widespread condemnation diminished the arrogance of the world's leading figures. Lillian's history remained a mystery, unknown to the attendees, not Becca, and not the staff. At 20, she tackled differential equations while caring for her mother, her diner earnings paying for textbooks. At 25, she encountered Henry at a math symposium, her understated intelligence captivating him amidst a gathering of prominent figures. Their marriage, a secluded promise in a Vermont meadow, was founded on affection and mutual mathematical understanding. Becca's challenge, the staff's badges, the academic's attire, none compared to the significance of the notebook Lillian possessed. She now stood in the lecture theater, her rubber band a testament to her truth, her silence a furnace that burned through their lies. The forum resumed, but the attendees' eyes remained on Lillian. A Caltech dean approached, his voice low with respect. "Mrs. Moore Bellamy, your work is extraordinary," he said, referencing his earlier scorn or regret. The academics retreated, their influence null, their aides scrambling to salvage ties with St. Lennox. The sponsors lingered, their influence wavering in Lillian's presence. She proceeded toward the atrium, her hazel eyes following Henry's pleased smile. The chandeliers softened, the autumn light lessening, leaving a procession of the world's most powerful individuals hoping for her attention, their gestures a quiet acknowledgement of the woman they had previously belittled. She was presented with a complex mathematical problem, not because a solution was required, but because they desired to observe her hesitate, falter, and become speechless. The seminar room was full of people in tailored suits and PhD name tags. She arrived wearing faded canvas shoes and a wrinkled shirt. However, when she held the marker and hundreds of eyes anticipated a misstep, the whiteboard revealed something unexpected. True brilliance doesn't require fanfare. It simply needs to be expressed. And the room responded with admiration. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this, and tell us in the comments, what would you do if you were Lillian? The moment she arrived on the red carpet, she was dismissed. Her outfit consisted of a simple linen dress, strappy flat sandals, and loose, unstyled hair. She carried a stack of black and white papers in her hand, without a binder or any visible branding. A businesswoman subtly adjusted her Cartier necklace, offered a brief look, and remarked, "Since when do charity galas welcome the locals?" A fashion model turned to her companions and stifled a laugh. She appears to have stepped out of a public library, not a billionaire ball. Rose Avery stood quietly at the VIP check-in. No one inquired about her name. No one examined the invitation she held. To them, she possessed no worth, merely a fleeting amusement in a glittering room, a woman too quiet, too plain, to be taken seriously. However, they were mistaken. The woman they had just humiliated was the actual owner of the entire gala, and the one who held absolute power over the very ecosystem they depended on. The Avery Global Gala stood as the event of the year, taking place in Washington, D.C. At the luxurious Meridian House, a mansion known for its chandeliers and rich history. More than a fundraiser, it represented a strategic competition where prominent figures, senators, CEOs, celebrities, and media moguls, contended for influence. The guest list was carefully selected, with only 200 invitations extended, each serving as a coveted entry into the upper echelons of American wealth and politics. A palpable excitement filled the atmosphere as attendees awaited news of the largest grants, the most esteemed collaborations, or a favorable review from the Avery Foundation, the powerful entity that dictated funding for areas ranging from education to defense contracts. Rose Avery moved through the gathering discreetly, her canvas backpack resting on her shoulder, her proposal for a complimentary community library held securely beneath it. Months were spent developing the plan, filled with a deep commitment to literacy and empowerment for children in underserved neighborhoods. The soft ivory, second-hand linen dress with its square neck moved gently as she walked. Her sandals made a quiet clicking sound on the marble floor. She chose not to wear makeup; it wasn't necessary. Her face was remarkable in its simplicity, with pronounced cheekbones and eyes that reflected a quiet determination. However, to the gala's guests, she was unnoticed or even a target. The lobby presented a scene of elaborate couture gowns and perfectly tailored tuxedos, with diamonds catching the light. A tech billionaire, sporting a velvet blazer, expressed disdain as Rose walked by, asking, "What's she doing here? Distributing flyers for a bake sale?" A congresswoman's aide, enjoying a glass of champagne, whispered to her superior, "Have they begun inviting anyone who walks in off the sidewalk?" She appears as though she instructs yoga at a local community center. A wave of laughter echoed among their group, precise and critical. Rose remained unfazed. She continued walking, her gaze fixed ahead and her pace even, as though the voices around her were merely ambient sound. Approaching the VIP check-in, an employee wearing a tailored black suit gave her a cursory look. "Name?" he inquired, his voice precise, seemingly certain she wasn't authorized. Rose presented her invitation, a simple card featuring a single, raised A. However, before she could respond, a woman adorned in a sequined gown pushed past her. "Pardon me, I am on the guest registry," the woman stated, displaying a wrist covered in diamonds. A staffer allowed her entry, disregarding Rose completely. "Ma'am," he said, addressing her, "this area is reserved for priority guests. Please try the general seating in the back." Rose acknowledged this, remaining calm, and moved aside. She offered no objections, spoke no protests. She simply stood there, holding her papers, her face calm but resolute. It was then that a young man wearing a well-cut navy suit, Evan Caldwell, the senator's son who has 1 million followers on social media, noticed her. He retrieved his phone, a smirk playing on his lips, and began recording. "Hey, watch this," he said to his live stream, adjusting the camera to focus on Rose. This woman believes she's attending the Avery Gala wearing a second-hand dress and carrying a pile of printer paper. Seriously, are you planning to present a free library proposal to billionaires? Best of luck, dear. His viewers immediately filled the chat with laughing emojis and mocking remarks. "She's certainly brave," Evan said with a laugh, zooming in on her sandals. "But this is an entirely different level of unrealistic." The audience reacted strongly, their laughter escalating in volume and intensity. A reality TV star, wearing a red dress with a low neckline, joined in the mocking, tossing her hair. "Honey, this isn't a PDA meeting. Go home and change," she said. A hedge fund manager, his cufflinks catching the light, added, "She's probably here to request funding. She should have at least chosen a more appropriate outfit." Rose remained motionless, her eyes following the detailed ceiling trim as if committing it to memory. She offered no reply, avoiding their stares. Her silence wasn't a sign of vulnerability, it was a barrier, unwavering and composed. While Rose waited near the VIP check-in, a cluster of young heiresses in dazzling gowns gathered around her, observing her like predators. One, holding a Chanel purse, glanced at Rose's cloth backpack and scoffed. "Is that her bag? I wouldn't use it to carry my dog's toys." Another approached, her voice laced with malice. "Sweetie, this is the Avery Gala, not a soup kitchen. Why don't you spare us all the discomfort and leave?" Laughter rippled through the room, the sounds bouncing off the marble walls and attracting attention. A photographer positioned nearby quickly captured an image, remarking to his colleague, "This'll go viral. Homeless hippie crashes elite gala." Rose's fingers curled more tightly around her invitation, though she remained silent. Her expression stayed composed, almost otherworldly, as if the comments were water flowing over glass. Despite this, each remark stung, and the visible enjoyment others took in her discomfort felt overwhelming. Within the ballroom, a palpable excitement filled the air. Tables were adorned with crystal stemware, and each centerpiece was a lavish display of orchids and gold leaf. The stage was prominently positioned at the front, enveloped by velvet curtains, where the evening's significant announcement was to be made, the reveal of the gala's primary sponsor, responsible for covering the expenses of the entire event. Many people believed it would be Nathaniel Avery, the solitary billionaire whose corporation Avery Global functioned as an unofficial power, influencing national spending and cultural trends. His lack of public appearances in recent years had only intensified speculation, but tonight, the expectation was that he would appear. Rose secured a seat at the perimeter of the room, close to a utility entrance where servers moved between areas. She placed her papers on the table, carefully smoothing them, and retrieved a small notebook from her backpack to write down some thoughts. The woman beside her, a media heiress wearing a sapphire-encrusted gown, looked over and expressed disbelief. "Are you really writing in a spiral notebook? At the Avery Gala?" Her friend, a pop star with a platinum blonde bob, moved closer. "Perhaps she's recording her feelings about feeling so different." They laughed, not attempting to speak quietly. Rose continued writing, her pen moving smoothly, her face showing intense concentration. The gala began with a string quartet, their music flowing amidst the conversations. The host, a silver-haired TV anchor with a voice like velvet, stepped onto the stage to greet the audience. "Tonight, we celebrate not just philanthropy, but power," he announced, his smile radiant. "The Avery Foundation has influenced our nation's future, education, infrastructure, and policy, and we're here to see who will carry that legacy on." A palpable anticipation filled the room, with many heads turning, trying to locate Nathaniel Avery. Was he observing from a private box at the back? The atmosphere was charged. Throughout the evening, the taunting of Rose continued relentlessly. A cluster of young influencers, positioned near the bar, repeatedly photographed her from a distance, adding captions like "Haha Gala Crasher" and "Who let her in?" Evan Caldwell, continuing his live stream, provided commentary on her every action. She was simply reviewing her documents as if she intended to revolutionize everything. "A reminder, you won't receive any funding appearing like that." His online discussion was filled with approving reactions to his humor, encouraging him to continue. A senator's wife, listening nearby, turned to her husband. "It's quite embarrassing, actually. They should increase security measures. People like her diminish the significance of the event." Rose, in the meantime, was listening to the speeches. A technology leader announced a commitment of $5 million for AI research. A congressman pledged $3 million for veterans programs. Each announcement received applause, but Rose's eyes remained focused on her notebook, where she documented observations about literacy gaps in rural schools. When a waiter offered her a glass of champagne, she smiled and requested water instead. "Plant-based diet, huh?" the waiter remarked, half joking. "You're likely the only one here who doesn't eat caviar." Rose chuckled quietly, a first indication of relaxation. "Caviar's overrated," she commented, and returned to her notes. Amidst a pause in the speeches, a well-known lobbyist moved toward Rose's table, his expression difficult to miss. He took her library proposal, examining it as if it were a simple sketch. "Free libraries? For those children," he stated, his voice audible to those at adjacent tables. "Darling, you're misusing everyone's time. Focus on teaching yoga or your current profession." He returned the papers, one page drifting to the floor. As Rose bent to retrieve it, a passing socialite inadvertently crushed it, her stiletto leaving a mark. She chuckled without turning around. The room filled with suppressed laughter, eyes turning to observe Rose's discomfort. She picked up the page, carefully smoothing it, and returned to her seat, her expression composed. However, the atmosphere surrounding her felt oppressive, thick with the audience's amusement at her misfortune. The room's unkindness escalated when Evan and his friends came to her table. The camera continued to record, his smile expansive. "Hey, library lady," he called out, his voice intended to attract attention. "What's your proposal? Free books for kids? That's charming, but this is a different level. You aren't securing a meeting with Nathaniel Avery appearing as if you just emerged from a commune." His companions chuckled, and several adjacent tables echoed the amusement, their laughter rising like a surge. Rose lifted her gaze, her eyes locking with Evan's for the first time. They were bright, unwavering, almost intense. She remained silent, maintaining eye contact until he visibly hesitated, a nervous chuckle escaping him as he addressed his camera. "Tough crowd, huh?" he mumbled, stepping back. The gala proceeded towards its peak. The host reappeared on stage, his demeanor serious, yet vibrant. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the moment you've all anticipated. The Avery Foundation has consistently been a source of influence, and tonight we announce not only the sponsor of this gala, but the new steward of Avery Global itself, the individual who now oversees its extensive resources, its funding channels, and its vision for America's future." The room fell silent, forks clinking against plates forgotten. Everyone leaned forward, anticipating Nathaniel Avery's imposing figure to appear. Instead, the host extended his arm toward the back of the room. "Please welcome the new owner of Avery Global, the woman now responsible for all political, educational, and media funding pipelines, Ms. Rose Avery." A noticeable reaction went through the crowd, with many people turning to look for a prominent figure in a private area. However, Rose rose to her feet, her linen dress reflecting the light, her sandals making almost no sound on the floor. She approached the stage, still holding her papers, and her hair remained unbound. The room was still, with all eyes focused on her, and many people were visibly surprised. Evan's phone shifted a little, his live stream showing his shocked expression. The businesswoman wearing the Cartier necklace sputtered, coughing on her wine. The model who had previously made fun of her appearance, referencing a library look, became motionless, her hand shaking as she held her clutch. Rose entered the spotlight, appearing exactly as she always did. There was no elaborate gown, no sparkling jewels, just Rose. She placed her documents on the podium and surveyed the audience, her eyes pausing on the first row, on Evan, the influencers, and the senator's wife. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm but carried a weight that filled the room. Tonight is not simply about raising money, it is about determining who truly deserves funding. She paused, allowing the words to resonate because I am capable of writing a $10 million check, or I can erase your name from this entire ecosystem permanently. As Rose approached the podium, the spotlight illuminated the faint creases in her linen dress, a stark contrast to the room's opulence. She placed her papers on the table, and for a brief instant the audience paused, anticipating a misstep. However, she began to speak, her voice firm, cutting through the quiet. I am Nathaniel Avery's daughter. For 7 years I have lived among you, unnoticed, to comprehend the world my father's empire influences. Every dollar you have pursued, every agreement you have finalized, every aspiration you have financed, it has been under my observation. The room reacted, faces losing color as the reality became apparent. Evan's phone vibrated in his hand, his live stream now displaying his own collapse. The businesswoman's Cartier necklace sparkled as she held it, her empire suddenly vulnerable. Rose stood firm, her unassuming nature now a symbol of authority, her silent strength unmistakable. The stillness was absolute. Evan's live stream chat filled with question marks and surprised emojis, his viewers struggling to understand what they just witnessed. The senator's wife squeezed her husband's arm, her face drained of color. The media heiress dropped her fork, the clatter reverberating in the quiet. The crowd's astonishment intensified as Rose's words lingered. She raised her head, her eyes meeting the senator's wife who had previously labeled her a detriment to the event. You believed I was insignificant, she stated, her voice calm yet sharp, but I'm the one who has been endorsing your grants, validating your initiatives, observing each action you've taken. My father established Avery Global, but I am the one who has been managing it, discreetly until this moment. The room felt smaller, her presence dominating every space. The pop star's platinum bob shook as she understood her latest tour was funded by Rose's endorsement. The tech mogul's wife, who had previously belittled her as someone of lesser status, settled back into her chair, her expression showing fear. Rose's unassuming nature was no longer a source of amusement, it demonstrated her power and influence. Rose remained calm, avoiding any display of triumph, and proceeded with, 7 years ago, my father, Nathaniel Avery, presented me with a choice. To truly understand what the world requires, I've lived among you unnoticed and ordinary. I've taught children to read in crumbling schools. I've eaten meals that cost less than your coffee. I've listened to people you'd never notice, and I've built something substantial. She presented her papers, the library proposal. This is the Quiet Power Initiative, a network of free libraries across America, starting with the kids who need them most. I'm funding it myself, $50 million to start, no grants needed. A hush lingered in the air, some murmuring, others frozen in disbelief. Rose's gaze repeatedly scanned the room, unwavering and determined. However, let me state this plainly. This environment, your initiatives, your endeavors, your reputations are reliant on Avery Global, and I determine who remains within it. Those who create, who contribute, who demonstrate foresight, they will prosper. Those who undermine, who deride, who perceive authority as a trivial pursuit. She stopped, her look directed at Evan, then the influencers, then the businesswoman. Your involvement is terminated. The impact of her words felt devastating. Evan's phone continued recording, though his hand trembled. His scholarship from the Avery Foundation, his White House internship, his entire future seemed to vanish before him. The influencers who had photographed her quickly tried to remove their posts, their faces pale. The senator's wife spoke urgently to her husband, who was already calling his chief of staff, attempting to save their funding. Rose did not pause to observe them. Turning back to the audience, her voice lowered, yet remained authoritative. The Quiet Power Initiative goes beyond books. It's about providing individuals with opportunities to advance, to gain recognition, and to be listened to. I have witnessed the impact of investing in those who are often disregarded, and I am here to ensure that continues, beginning tonight. She descended from the stage, her sandals making a gentle sound, and returned to her place. The chamber filled with a combination of surprised applause and anxious whispers. The host, regaining composure, attempted to introduce the following speaker, but the audience was distracted. Everyone's attention was focused on Rose, who remained seated, calmly reviewing her notebook as if the events hadn't occurred. By morning, the consequences arrived quickly and severely. Evan Caldwell's Avery Foundation scholarship was withdrawn, and his internship was terminated via a brief email from the White House. His live stream, intended as a ridicule of Rose, unexpectedly gained widespread attention for negative reasons, and his name is now linked to arrogance and downfall. Those influencers who had shared her photos were barred from Avery-funded events, and their brand partnerships ended abruptly. The businesswoman, adorned with a Cartier necklace, discovered her company's $20 million education grant had been withdrawn and rerouted to Rose's library program. The senator's wife and her husband encountered a harsh truth. Their favored initiatives, ranging from think tanks to campaign funds, were discontinued, diminishing their impact within a few hours. By morning, the lives of the elite were falling apart. The reality television personality who had instructed Rose to depart received an email. Her Avery-sponsored docuseries, Her Pathway to Credibility, was canceled, and her name was removed from the foundation's list. She looked at her phone, her red dress from the gala discarded on the floor, her career seemingly ruined. The hedge fund manager, who had mocked her attire, discovered his firm's $15 million defense contract had been given to a rival company, a brief message from Avery Global mentioning ethical incompatibility. The cufflinks felt like restraints now, his arrogance a tightening grip. Social media was filled with screenshots of their mockery, now accompanied by captions referencing their downfall, a clear case of karma. Viewers watching Evan's archived livestream celebrated as his confident expression transformed into a representation of his self-destruction, his future seemingly undone by the woman he'd previously dismissed as delusional. Rose, in the meantime, had already begun her work. She convened with community leaders in a small D.C. office, her cloth backpack resting on the floor, her proposal now serving as a detailed plan. The Quiet Power Initiative opened its first library in a neglected neighborhood, with plans for 50 more by year's end. She didn't gloat, didn't seek the spotlight, she just worked, her quiet power reshaping the world one step at a time. The influencers who'd tagged Rose with Galacrasher were now absent from the elite circle. Their invitations to Avery-backed events, fashion weeks, charity balls, and premieres vanished, and their follower counts plummeted as brands distanced themselves. A tearful apology video was released, but the damage was already done. Rose's team had initiated the process for excluding her from future funding. The photographer who captured Rose's viral humiliation had his press credentials revoked and was dropped by his agency. His moment of notoriety became his downfall. Across the internet, the public celebrated what they perceived as justice. Memes featuring Rose's serene face with the caption, "Never judge the quiet ones," proliferated on all platforms. Those who had previously mocked her sandals now confronted a changed situation. Rose Avery didn't just win, she redefined the landscape, leaving the established order behind. The gala's elite had dismissed her sandals, her proposals, her aspirations. They perceived her as insignificant. But Rose Avery was far from insignificant. She embodied the future, and she had just reshaped theirs. This is the impact of the overlooked. If this narrative resonated with you, share, comment, and subscribe for more.